Good morning. Is there anybody there? Ah, wake up. Hi, Sean. How you doing? Hi, William. Quick clean. Bit of cleaning. There we go. Very good. Good to see you on here again, William. So, Friday, and this is the sort of last bit I think of doing the 3 splurges, and then we'll just be doing 1 splurge. So this is your chance to do a 3 splurges guided, like meditation, but splurging. Hi, Stallion. So, Sean, have you got everything? But are you joining in? William, are you going to join in? Stallion, do you fancy joining in doing some splurging? Thing is with the splurging thing, right? You actually don't need like all of this. No. I mean, what splurging is about is just experiencing. All right, oh, that's cool, Stallion. But what splurging is about is just experiencing that. Excellent, you've got Oxy, right? Okay, so maybe you could splurge on that, Sean. Started January the 1st. Can't breathe. Oh God, right. You need to remember to breathe, though. Maybe it's just a practice thing. Hi, Tanmate. Are you splurging today? Z, are you going to splurge? So, yeah, a couple of things to remember. 3 things, right? If I remember all 3 things, right? So, the first thing, yes, splurging is a part of making music, but it's also the first part of any creativity. It's brainstorming, isn't it? But we're practicing just letting go, right? We're practicing of kicking the editor out of our heads, right? And practicing making music without judgment. Right, okay. So what I will say is okay, but it's your job though, isn't it? So you can't really, maybe you can't. But splurging's a great way to learn things, okay? And it's also a great way to simplify things. And when you are overwhelmed, it can give you clarity. So, with regards to the machine and making music, you see, this system was designed by a guy called Mike Monday, and he was and still is coaching very successful dance producers who DJ, right? So, and what happens is when you're DJing and you're well known and promoters are booking you, you're touring all over the world and you're tired, and sometimes you're going through multiple time zones, and you're exhausted, and overwhelm's a really big thing, and too tired to make music. But the number one problem you've got is if you're not making music, right, and you're not getting the best ideas out and having stuff that's going up the charts, like in Beatport and Track Source and stuff like that, if you're not going up those DJ charts, promoters don't book you. And then if you don't get booked, right, and you haven't got any music, you lose your job, and then you've got to start the whole thing over again. So there has to be a way where you can do most of the heavy lift, right? And use all of the kind of time where, you know, imagine you go into a gig in the back of a taxi, or you're flying somewhere, or you do, you know, using like small short times to do these creative sprints, going through the machine. So one of the things that we did when the machine was first happening is there was a section of, we used to say, right, what's your minimum viable commitment, okay, to music, okay? And, you know, you would say, oh, well, I can do, usually what people say is I can do 2 hours every day, no bother, right? And that's not true. Like, if your life depended on it, you couldn't guarantee that you could do 2 hours every day of music. I couldn't guarantee that I could do an hour and a half this every day. I mean, I miss the odd one. So your minimum viable commitment has to be something realistic. So what's the smallest amount of time, you know, that you need to make music? So my story is I did, I can do 2 hours. Okay, no bother. And then I failed to do it. So the minimum viable commitment, you know, had to come down. Remember, like, the question you're answering here is you have to do music as if your life depends on it, all right? How much can you do? You just have to create something, a little bit of something every day, okay? You have to turn up. So anyway, my minimum viable commitment went down to like 10 minutes, okay? And I still messed it up, right? So at the moment it's 10 minutes, and it hasn't been down to 5 minutes for a while, but it has been down to 5 minutes. But think what the advantages are, right? You know that you can make or do something in 5 minutes. Then there's always time to do something. There's always 5 minutes to push your music career on. Oh yes, we'll talk about that. Tanmay. So there's always like 5 minutes, all right, to do something. So, you know, for me, the positive benefits of that is like I'd start taking my laptop to work and everywhere I went and all this kind of stuff. And there's always time to flip the lid open, switch it on, switch Ableton on. And then when you're organized and you've got your machine running, you've got lists of things. So if I've got 5 minutes, I can go, well, maybe I can do something on a mix. And I have a list there. And I'll just go, well, I'll turn the vocals down. So I can turn the vocals down or whatever. So, or I can do a 5 minute splurge. Now, if you don't have a computer, Sean's just got this app for his phone called Oxy, which is really good. There's also Gadget 2 by Korg, which I can highly recommend. And Ableton have got Ableton Note. Now, so all of your Ableton users out there, I don't know if you've heard about Z, I know you use Ableton. Who else uses Ableton? I can't remember. Z, you use Ableton. Z uses Ableton. Sean uses Ableton, right. So there's Ableton Note. Now, the good thing about, and I think Gadget does this, Oxy and Note, you can export, okay, brilliant. You can export these, right, and both are free, I think, or they're like $4 or something. Good. Hi, Des. You can export your work out as an Ableton Live project. So it just opens up in Ableton. Ableton for life, yeah. It is great, isn't it? I haven't strayed for years and years. It's amazing. So what you'd have anyway, back to the story about, you know, the DJs going through time zones, need new music. The start, you know, one of the things they're using the phones to create ideas and generate ideas and splurge and be able to select the very best ideas that interest them. And the thing about splurging and doing these quick ideas and the connection with all of this is that the more ideas you create, the better quality of your music will be. But the definition of quality is the ideas, not how it sounds in terms of being well mixed. When you're splurging, chances are it'll sound like all over the place. It'll not be, there'll be things or should be things absolutely, totally, technically wrong with it. But it's a seed of an idea. And when you listen back to them, having had some distance, a minimum of 3 days, 7 days when you first start doing this is great. There will be things that you hear that will be exciting, okay? And almost to the point with me, especially when I've been splurging under pressure, I think, wow, like, how did I think of that? It's almost like, not me. What a great idea. And I can't remember doing that, but it is something I've done. So you're on to the next phase, and all you're doing is you're just investigating what that idea wants to be, and that's the start of the process. So there is always time to do music, yeah, and there's always time to do a splurge, and there's always time to create something, and that's it. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're just practicing. You're keeping fit that creative muscle of idea generation. Oh God, is it Rick Rubin? I remember there was something I saw with him talking about Eminem and his notebook, and Eminem writing constantly in the notebook, and him saying, "Why you're never ever going to use all of those lyrics?" And Eminem's like, "Well, yeah, of course I'm not going to use them, but the reason I do it is to keep myself engaged in the process." So it's training. Creativity is about training. Creativity is about different creative muscles all being exercised, which by running a machine, by, a bit of a plug for me, turning up to my coaching group, okay, you will exercise these muscles. It's, it's a gym for your brain. Tanmay, I'm all set up. Let's see, that's brilliant. Okay, I'm all set up. Not all days are the same, but music will always be for us. There for us. And that's brilliant. And the pandemic, I was one of the musicians who kind of unlucky, had a job. Except, I was in a hospital working with people, and wards were positive, and I was there at the time when, people were very, very worried if they got it, they might die. But to be fair, music got me through it. I had something to turn to. Music and creativity, it was like having it helped me be resilient. It was like having a suit of armor, really. I mean, music's such a wonderful way to just express your inner feelings, isn't it? Music is a metaphor for how we're feeling. This is like one of the reasons it's so powerful. We can play something on a guitar. We can play, you can play some blues, and you can disclose things that have happened to you, and thoughts and feelings, and make something beautiful, can't you? And this is why music's very, very important, and why we should all be doing it and all engaging in creativity. And it doesn't matter how good you are, at the end of the day, it all means something. What we play is just a thumbprint. It's our own unique identity, and it's our own unique personality coming out metaphorically through an instrument that other people hear, that creates something beautiful. You can make the most ugliest of spaces into something beautiful. So there we go. I'm going to go for a lecture, aren't I? You can tell it. I'm going to tip. I'm getting all emotional about music now, and how important it is for our well-being. And it is. I mean, it's amazing that it's legal, isn't it? And I've seen music. I mean, everybody here, you're all musicians, right? And you've got this wonderful superpower that can help you and can help other people. and practicing it, right? You know, practicing it and sitting down and developing these skills, even if just a guitar and playing, nobody can take that away from you, you know? It's your own time investment. There's no money, there's no subscription, okay? It's just you and the instrument. Okay. How did I get onto that? See, a wonderful Tanti says that's what makes it wonderful. Thank you. Very good. Okay, so Tanmi, yes, I was in the not so distant past. I was talking about there's a different perspective on splurging, is creating your own unique instrument. So, and thinking about this in terms of your template, because really what we want to be doing is want to be thinking about our studio environments as not a studio environment with lots of separate components and things lying about, okay, and like tools. We want to be thinking of it as just like picking a guitar up or an instrument. We want to think about it like an instrument, okay? And want to think about like an instrument that we can also upgrade, yeah? This is where it gets exciting. So, one of the games we can play is like if you were just, if you had to make music on just, one instrument, what would be your minimum viable instrument? What would that be? What would your unique instrument be? Okay, how could you make your instrument do all the melodies, all the basses, and all the chords, but make it, okay, but make it so it's deep, so you can add to it, so it's infinite. Yes. Kamikaze shots, very good. Music is a universal emotional language requiring no translation. Guitar with polychrome, absolutely. Now, the thing is about it is that technically is all you need. You've got like a pitch shifter on it, so that's going to cover your bases. So by doing the splurge process for this initial phase, okay, writing a tune with just that one instrument, you're going to be thinking outside of the box. You're going to be, it's going to get you using it, and you're going to learn more about it. Okay, studying. I like plucks and ping pong. Yes, I remember. Yeah, you do. Well, stick it in your template. But you've also got to be thinking about, making chords, and I mean, that can be, that could be like, the plinky plonky type music thing. You could do something with that. Especially with synths. I mean, and if you think, like guitar bands like Polyphia and all those guys who play with their fingers and all that, like super modern style of guitar, like it's all plucks, isn't it? So why not do it on a synth? But do everything. Cool. So those of you who are going to try out their phone splurges, great. Those of you who've got your unique instruments, excellent. And everybody else, if you've got your, like me, your regular template, I always suggest doing beats plus 4. We're going to start. Actually, I need a little bit more coffee, right? We're going to start splurging in a minute. It's like working at a roadside, isn't it, with me? Coffee break. Digging the roads. I just need my lunchbox. Very fussy eater though. I don't like cold food. Unless it's smoked salmon. But there's only so much I can have of it. But I never eat sandwiches. Ever. Right, well. It's an essential part of this studio. There's 2 things, a thermos flask and a feather duster. So the thermos flask is great. I don't have to move from here. unless I need the toilet. But as we've discussed in the past, right, you know, we could have a signature thermos flask and then the Hutch studio commode. But I'm not sure who would go for that. Pee in a bottle. Yeah, you got to watch it on the coffee, haven't you? I don't think it's really bad for you though. But if you're having panic attacks, you got to watch it, haven't you? Maybe switch to tea. I've been drinking a little bit of tea lately as well, but I do love coffee in the morning. It's a habit more than anything. No, the Hutch Studio commode. Wonder how many odds sell. No, you wouldn't know. It would I'd just be sitting. You'd just be sitting on your live, and maybe your face might turn red. But the idea is it's discreet, isn't it? But maybe not for a live. Yeah. All right then, let's do this. Wrong button. Ah, there we go. Right. So I'll just assume, right, everybody's gonna splurge somehow. All right, you're gonna, you know, strum a guitar. You're gonna whatever. And it's all gonna be good. Yeah. Right. Excellent. Okay. And I think I might go into the arrange view for a change. Get 8 bars up here. Feels so old school doing the arrange view. It's actually probably much better to splurge in here than it is, because you know, you're thinking more along the timeline, aren't you? Okay. I need to delete these. Ten minutes, all right, and we're off. This is it. Right, Tanmi, you've got to just make a start. Don't worry about a BPM. Just pick something. I'm using the default 124. Pick a key, any key, doesn't matter. But being a music producer, as I say, is uncertainty. Got to do this for yourself. Just pick something, run with it. Also, we're being proactive and not reactive. And again. That's good. I just want that little melody to go in the gaps of that arpeggio, which it's done. 3 minutes, everybody. I think that background noise can go now. Something different. Much better. Nearly coming to the end of the splurge, so I'm just gonna have to pick something for the drums. I'm gonna guess. Okay. Ish. I think the only criteria I had is that it didn't have a massive long kick drum. And the snare is on 2 and 4. And that is it. But that's our splurge done, everybody. So as you can hear, it's rough and ready. Drums are a bit loud, aren't they? Okay, and that is it. I'll just duplicate that twice and then gonna splurge. Sorry, save and bounce out. Right, so stop what you're doing. I love the 80s. It's just what I'm doing at the minute. I probably didn't love being in the 80s, to be fair. You know, I was at school struggling along. and just call it anything. And export, go quiet a second. Okay, there we go. Right, yes. I think it's funny, that 80s thing, isn't it? Because I think, like, I love, from what I remember, like, because I never watch films, hardly ever. But I loved all the John Carpenter films. You know, I've got fond memories of that. And I always loved the music, even before I like did all of this sort of stuff as a kid. So that's obviously, you know, had an impression on me. But I think, you know, at the end of the day, like, there's a mix of like other influences that I bring in from all of my house phases that I went through. I started doing future bass. Oh, winds problems. Right, good. We've got winds coming in. I've got to do mine. Going. Okay. Interview used. Problem didn't. Right, okay, if I can read my writing. Right, Tanmay, win. Made the most beautiful sounding idea on guitar, found two magical chords that worked well. Problems, felt like I didn't have enough time, and also made an attachment with it. Okay, that's cool. So, Tanmay, what are your opportunities? So this is all very good. I'm going to put that up there. So you've got your problems. What do you need to check? What do you need to... So in your process, right? What do you need to change to allow yourself more time? So you can only have 10 minutes, but how can you make that 10 minutes feel like a half an hour session? What do you need to add or remove from your template? What do you have to... Like, usually it's something you need to simplify something. Opportunity, I can expand the idea further to hopefully make a song. Yes, well, you're going to do that later on, aren't you? But actually, we're focused in on the 10 minutes. So I need to know what you propose to do to make time work for you. Because part of the practice is doing this in 10 minutes, isn't it? I was trying to come up with complex ideas, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Having said that, if you're going to do complex ideas on guitars, what ideas do you need to practice outside of your session on guitar? What skills do you need to develop? Because it's, I know that I'm like, I tend to leave skills last. out of the equation, and that's because like everybody, I tend to find that most people are skill focused, but maybe this process is actually telling you something that you need to work on. So that could be one thing. You could be like looking at how can I practice making complex ideas more simple by just practicing playing complex ideas and making them feel simple, and then you can go to more complex things. Well, that's good because, but in a way, I was outside of my comfort zone, and right, so that's really important because this is back to the extreme sports psychology, isn't it? The Stephen Kotler stuff, Chicks and Me, how is that, that you were probably in flow there, Tanmay, which is brilliant, and that, that skill to ratio is between 4 and 7%. So maybe you just had that ratio just right, that you were like focused and concentrating and pushing yourself, therefore creating new ideas and problems that you can solve. Remember, problems are a good thing. So that's excellent. Anybody else got any wins, problems and opportunities while we're here? Because it's a great opportunity. We can quickly talk through them. I don't mind. It's important. It gets us all motivated. I don't know if anybody else was splurging along. Yeah. So that's another thing, is the time limit. So just with the time limit, so like it's kind of the 10-minute, imposing 10 minutes is kind of, it's creating that pressure. You got stuck at using the piano roll, or you're stuck at using the piano roll. That's cool. At the end of the day, you can just bang out a tune. Darwin, I would like to hear what went well, what didn't go well, and what you could do better. That would be good. But with regarding like piano rolls, again, that's like a really simple way of doing something. You could just write a whole tune on one instrument, couldn't you, like that? At the end of the day, you just need to hear bass and a melody, maybe, to then later be able to, because as I say, in this phase, we're not being judgmental about our music. We're just making something to have an opinion on later. So that could be a good way to hear if there's a tune there later on, is just using that one instrument. So I've done that before in the past myself, and I've done it as exercises where you're just making like bass lines and then melodies, and then bass line and a melody, and you're just splurging those things just along one timeline. Anybody else before we move on? It's okay if you're like busy doing something else and put them up later or whatever. Okay, cool. I can't remember if I bounced this out. I did, didn't I? Yes. Right, let's open up a new project. Okay, so here's a good thing. I need to be more open to ideas and less judgmental. Brilliant. Right, so this is excellent. So judgmental, being judgmental is our editor in the process coming in and just telling us like nonsense. What that's doing is all of those judgmental thoughts are stopping you from focusing in on the music. So this is a skill that needs to be practiced. We all have judgment. I have judgment. Even in that splurge, judgment comes in. But it's just like meditation. It's kind of these thoughts feelings, emotions crop up like out of nowhere. And what I do is I just accept that it's there, and I just don't get on board with those thoughts. I focus back in on the music, just like meditation. When you're meditating, best way it was described to me was like, it's like standing on a train platform, distracting thought comes in, train, it's a train, doors open, don't get on the train, let the train go. And this is a similar thing. It's just the same thing. What's good with this is, for people who are playing instruments here and you're performing, just break my pen, that, you'll be very acutely aware of this happening, these distracting thoughts coming in. And it's just, it's just because we're human beings, okay? It's always going to happen. And what we've got to do is just don't get on board with those feelings, because as soon as thoughts and feelings, as soon as you pay them attention, you become lost in them, right? Then you're not listening to the music, and that if you're improvising, you're playing, that's when things go wrong, okay? There's many times I'll be in a situation and I've probably been practicing a lick or something like that for like a week, right? And then I'll be on a live with Thomas, and then my brain will go, "Oh, you've wasted loads of time playing that thing. You should just jam it in here and play it." And then sure enough, if you go with that thought and you do it, it doesn't work, and you make a mess of it. As soon as I start thinking about where I'm putting blocks of ideas in something that I'm improvising, it all falls to bits. So what we have to do is not be judgmental. Quickly create one idea. So you notice I make that kind of funny background. And then what I'm doing is I'm just playing something over the top and seeing what fits. And then that creates other ideas, doesn't it? And then you just go with those ideas. So it's being flexible. And whatever idea comes out, I just trust that it's from something insightful, and I just follow it. What we don't want to do is think about this as a design process. I don't mean everything to come out 80s, but then again, I'm using 80s synths, so it probably does sound like that. It's not like where I'll go, I am 80s, and in the 80s they didn't do this, so I'm not going to do this, I'm going to ignore this creative idea because it's not part of the genre or style that I'm doing. I'm just going to do it because it's what the music's asking me to do. We're serving the music. I mean, where do ideas come from? Ideas are generated from being a response to our environment. And creativity, by definition, is solving problems for the first time. So expect the creative journey musically to be one that is not straight. You're going to be, oh, I'm over here, I'm over there, right? But you are in this kind of haphazard way, providing you're being flexible enough to go with these ideas. If something doesn't work and you hit a dead end, don't do it. Because what you have to believe, and can be another common thing, is that you have to believe that ideas and creativity and your motivation are in abundance, I woke up this morning, couldn't be arsed. I could have just lay in bed, right? But I got up and I did it. And I dragged myself down here, just going to work. And then once I get set up and I've got my coffee and I make the first noise, you guys are on, it's game on. So do you, Darwin, so I didn't know who you or McRocklin were before I found Polychrome. Do you guys have an education in music? Yes. I mean, I wouldn't say it was lucky, right? I was determined that I would do nothing else with my life apart from music, and that would be my job. And as soon as I left school, that was it. I was in bands and what have you. So in terms of an education in music, yes, I'm a graded classical trained musician, believe it or not. I also have, weirdly enough, I have a master's in music, fine art, experimental composition, and also have a master's in curating, which I specialised in, because you have all these weird bits of music, right? So then I went down a route of trying to work out how it should be played and displayed, right? My master's was all about, oh God, this will get really complicated, because I was then going to go off and do a PhD, and I stopped at that point on this particular thing. But anyway, then I got into the curating sound and how that should be displayed, site specifically, and also within a gallery context. And then I binned it all, and then I went back to shredding, because I got up and jammed with Dragon Force onto it, and it was all Thomas's fault. And then the next thing I know, a Kiesel guitar arrived, and then I'm like playing that, I'm thinking, this is actually like, what was I doing? I should have just kept playing guitar. What was that like? Why did I go down this crazy academic route? No, I learned a lot actually, because it got me out of sort of the real sort of formal, designy kind of bit of music. And it made me really think outside the box, and it made me deconstruct music in a really interesting way. In fact, as I became, I suppose you would count me at that point as a sound artist. So I was really influenced by sort of the music concrete movement, and I really liked the book. What was it? Schaefer Murray's Tuning of the World, and how he talks about sound and how it was first recorded, because you couldn't record sound in Greek mythology, so they would try and write and describe sound. And I found this very, very interesting and enlightening, especially the music concrete movement, which was sort of where people were recording sounds, like Pierre Schaeffer. They're all called Schaefer Murray, aren't they? These guys. They were recording sounds onto tape and chopping the tapes up. And this would be back in the 40s, and then creating sequencing sounds. But the interesting thing that I found with sounds is I was able to tap into other emotions that I couldn't with a guitar, and I found it much more easier in a metaphorical way to be more political. I should talk about it at some point. This whole kind of idea I had about sound. But I was quite inspired by, I can't remember the names now. Oh God, what was he called? The French philosopher, Henry Lefebvre. So I was like, the initial inspiration that I had was from him and his notions of space, how we live. And we have the lived space, we have the perceived space, and we have the conceived space. And then what I was doing is I was making these found sound compositions within these different spaces. And the conceived space was probably the most interesting one, because that's where our space, where we grow with our thoughts and contemplation. And the interesting thing about that is I had this sound composition, if you could imagine it, that was in this room, and it had like different speakers on the walls of all this weird sound, and each one was like a separate composition, but they all fitted together. And then for the conceived space, the way that was done was just everything switched off, and you were just left in this white room with silence. And then what that was about was the thoughts that you had after that. So in other words, I was playing with the idea of the audience, the viewer, becoming part of the composition. So it was like a biofeedback thing. It was like, they heard this music, and then when it stopped, it was down to their thoughts were part of an extension of that creativity, which they were the author of. Does this make any sense? It's very vague, because it was a while ago when I did that master's, But yes, that's. So I went down that. That was partly educate, and then I did do a teacher qualification. Scarily enough. But then I was like, the whole kind of teaching thing. Like, I don't think it was like the best thing, the best method. And then what the game-changing thing happened is when I found a coach, when I found Mike Monday, and he started coaching me, and I realised actually the whole coaching thing, okay, was the best way to approach sort of music education with what I wanted to do. In other words, all I'm doing is just helping people start and facilitate the skills that they already have. And at least that way it promotes their unique creativity. But you still end up learning all the skills like, scales, modes, all of that kind of stuff. The formal stuff just comes in, but it's in sympathy with all the other conditions of success. So habits, environment, decision making, fear, community, boredom, or all the other areas. So there we go. That's, partly what I did. But education. All right. And I'm glad I didn't go down the PhD route, because I would have just ended up writing about something and not actually doing it. But I do get tempted now and then. I always have like a couple of PhD proposals that I'll kind of tweak and then put into a university to see if they're interested in it. Sometimes I get a bite, but then I usually think I don't want to do it. Right. Let's do another splurge. Right. Just keep knocking my headphones out. Right, are we on? Right, yeah, there we go. Right. All right, are we all ready for a splurge? Are we ready to start again? By the way, my wins were like, I used the arrange view, and it was great because I could have an overview. The problem was that I didn't really utilize it in terms of making a splurge arrangement, which usually you would just arrange in the order that you're writing the parts, but I didn't actually do that. I just ignored it and bounced it out, so I might as well have been in the session view. So the opportunity there is to just be aware of time, and at the minute at the end try and do a quick arrangement. Simple as that, really. Okay. So I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. And we're off. Phew. Nearly there. Okay. Right, stop what you're doing. Export. Oh, I've done that. Sorry, save. So, let's have a look. All set. Hi, Simon. So Darwin Reed says, I'm a natural talented musician. I know how to play, but I don't have the lingo. That's perfectly fine. I mean, a lot of the music that I listen to, electronic wise, is done by musicians who don't have tons and tons of music theory. The most important thing is, I suppose, being able to describe and explain what you're doing, and therefore, by doing that, it's easier to create newer things. So that's perfectly fine. But there's something between description and explaining music that's very, very important. Obviously, a description you're explaining something. Sorry, a description you're describing something. Obviously, but when you explain something, the thing about an explanation is it gives you a model that you can keep reusing. So again, that's something that I attempt to try and teach in my coaching groups. So, if anybody's interested in joining a group, okay, give me a message, because I am looking at starting a second group, okay, that'll run in the morning. So there'll be a morning session. One of these sessions, actually, I don't know what day yet, but one of these sessions, we would meet at 5 and we'd do 2 hours coaching. And I'd run you through teaching the machine and all that kind of thing, and all this wonderful thing, conditions of success. And obviously, we would look at explanations of music and how you can use that. But one of the best kind of usable tools for an explanation has definitely been using Gestalt psychology principles. Because it gets around a lot of music theory, really, and helps you understand music in a way that's going to allow you to create and start using things straight away. Okay, Tanmate wins. Use voicings I don't normally use. Some unique rhythm problems. Now this is leading somewhere very good. Problems. I don't normally use unique rhythm problems. Felt less motivated as time went by. That is perfectly fine. That is part of it. But you just got to keep going because we've got the timer. It is going to end, so keep pushing on. And again, that's one of those feelings we have. And sometimes I'll make music and I'll feel completely demotivated. And then I listen back to it in the 3 days, 7 days, and I think, wow, I didn't hear the lack of motivation. The other thing you've got is, so you might consider using voicings I don't normally use. So in your guitar practice sessions, Tanmay, maybe you want to have a look at doing something with those voicings and exploring it in a more practice theoretical based way, and then have a look at then how you can then bring that back into your session in an insightful way. So one thing this will do, by splurging, testing yourself under pressure, it's going to bring up areas that you may not have been aware of in your guitar playing that you can now practice. The thing is when you find a kind of blind spot in your playing and you think, great, like you should look at this as a positive thing. Like I tend to, especially when I've been writing solos on here and then there's been a lick I've just got stuck on and then there's been a small technical problem behind that, that becomes a micro practice, which then I thoroughly enjoy doing for the rest of the week because I know and I get excited. I didn't notice that thing before, but actually the splurging and doing stuff under pressure through speed comes truth. By putting myself under that kind of pressure, these things crop up, and those are the things that need attention. Not everything we're practicing needs attention. We just practice it because it's a routine habit. But what do we actually need to do in our practice that's more to do with us connecting? So it's that connecting thing with the outside world. Luckily for me, I have the live streams with Thomas, okay? So I'm there and like whatever I'm playing and I'm connecting, and where it goes wrong, I'm acutely aware of, and I get very excited because I think what a great opportunity to find out where. I think it's decided not to buzz. I've done something, haven't I? Anyway, there we go. So it didn't feel quite inspiring. Maybe it was because I messed the timer up. Tanmay. Typical. So that's been great. We've done 2 splurges. We're at 6:52. I've got to end at 7. So wins problems. Well, for the wins with me is I've kind of as you can see here, this is almost like a typical splurge arrangement. You would do these as you're going, or if you just had an 8-bar kind of loop with a load of parts, you would just distribute that loop in the order that you wrote the parts in, would be another way. But fundamentally, you don't have to listen to it when you're doing the arrangement. In fact, it's better not to listen to it, because all you're doing is you're just trying to make different sections for you to listen to, so you can hear how tension and release and how the parts actually sit with each other. So you're just making other additional possible ideas that you may want to hear in the future, is what I would say with that. Okay. So the next thing that's going to happen is, right, anybody want to ask me anything? Anything, or it doesn't have to be a coachy thing. You can we can talk. We're allowed to talk about gear. I'll do the consumerist thing as well, Right. Well, the thing is, Tanmay, is what you could do is you could create an ideas column in your machine. Something I don't use really, and I should. So here's the ideas column, right? Actually, I have a separate thing. to this, I have another board which is the unique style map. One day I'll show everybody that. So what you could do is when you get up, because you can get Trello, it's on your phone, you can just stick in your idea and then you've got something you can use. So you see I've got Z's Chase Through Smoky Nightclub. As an idea for a possible story. So yeah, you could do that. You could use that. So on Monday, when I wake up, we'll be doing one. I'll try and get the session moving along with less chatting, really. So what we'll do is we'll do one group splurge. So if you want to do the group splurge in the morning, think of it like your daily creative sprint. Okay, it's not just about getting a piece of music out, but it's about, well, for me, setting my brain up for the day, or for you guys, just creating an idea. If you're about to go to bed or something like that, creating an idea which you can take forward at a later date. But either way, and also experimenting about creativity. But we're exercising that muscle either way. A bit like going to the gym. So we'll do the splurge at the beginning. So we'll need to be, usually I'm a few minutes late, to be fair. But so the stream's always at 5:30. But then it's usually about like 5:35 by the time I actually get on. So if you're ready with whatever you're splurging on, guitar, phone, DAW, full studio, we'll do that creative sprint together, and I'll also throw in the wins, problems and opportunities as well. And anybody who's interested in learning modularized creativity, otherwise the machine that I have, and being coached, then send me a message. My email is in the description for this channel. So if you email me the description in this channel, I can tell you more about it. Sometimes I think when I look at other artists who are a lot better in all aspects and feel inferior. Any tips on that? Yes, lots of tips. Appreciate that they're there and ask yourself, what can I learn from them? But, don't feel inferior, right? The reason they're doing what they're doing is because they've worked at what they're doing. That's the first thing. But actually, Tanmay, the truth of the matter is, right, you already have the skills, right, to make great music, okay? You've already got enough to do stuff, right? And it doesn't have to be super complicated, right? We'll look at, you look at bands like Polyphia and all this kind of stuff, and they're just like, wow, that's absolutely technically amazing. But ask yourself, the core idea is quite simple, isn't it? The chord progressions are quite simple, okay? But what they're doing is very complex over the top. It's a bit like there's lots of like kung fu going on, right? And like distraction. But fundamentally, you're just being kicked in the balls with like one very simple, solid idea. So just think about the simple ideas and making them as effective as possible, but as unique. People aren't bothered about all of that kung fu, right? It's just a thing, and it's great when you're into that, and it's something to aspire to and shows amazing skill. Yeah, the only person you should compete with is you. You were yesterday, yes. So, in other words, this is another thing with the coaching thing, is basically you're only in competition with yourself. There is no kind of differentiation in a group. So you can have like really advanced people with people who've only just began, right? Pretty much. As long as it can basically work a few basics on the DAW, it doesn't actually matter because it's about you, okay? So the main thing is to focus in on your own unique ideas and creativity, Tanmay, and just appreciate those guys who are there, but also see what you can learn from them and see what ideas you could then make your own. At the end of the day, our mission is one of mastery, isn't it? It's not like a design thing where we're making something perfect. It's a continuous walk towards a horizon which we'll never ever reach. But the journey of getting there is one that's fun and can bring all kinds of interesting experiences, and we can end up doing lots of things we never thought we would be doing, and certainly that'll be something that you're experiencing in these splurges now. All right, everybody. So I think that's me pretty much done. I must now leave the venue. So it's the weekend. I think there is a live stream happening with me and Thomas. And yeah, so I'll be shredding tomorrow. I'll be in shred mode. Surrendered, abandoned. That's what it is. Art is never finished, just abandoned or surrendered. Perfect. What a great way to end this session with that quote. All right, guys. So I'll see you Monday. We'll do one splurge and then we'll be crashing into discovery. All right, then. See yous. Bye.